So much about the
What would you say if I turned into all the things you love to hate? And on my way comes crashing through the rotten beams and window panes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 15, and I am your host, Dan Brosman. It will not stop snowing here in the Midwest. I just ran out to go grab a drink down at the Shell station, and God, it's snowing again. Every day here it's snowing. I don't think there's been one day in the last 2 to 3 weeks where it hasn't snowed. And it is cold here. Ladies and gentlemen, it is cold. Like -8 cold when I wake up to go into work in the morning. Crazy. It's the kind of cold that if you smile when you're outside, it hurts your teeth. Hey, welcome to the Midwest. Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Man, they pulled out a really convincing win in Super Bowl 51. 51? Is this 51? I don't know. Who cares? Yeah, I would have bet the house on the fact that the Chiefs would have won. Actually, I came close. I came close to putting money down on the Chiefs. Jeez, but you never know. That's why I do what I do and they do what they do, because I don't know nearly enough about football, obviously. But yeah, it wasn't that great of a game. If you guys all watched it, you know what I mean. I'm happy that Tom Brady won another one. I'm not one of those guys who's a Tom Brady hater. I don't know. And I like to hate people. I'm a hater. At least that's what some people have told me. I never got on that Tom Brady thing. I can't hate the guy for winning. I mean, pretty much what I'm saying is, if I hated the guy, I would just be saying, well, I'm just sore ass because my team's not winning. Well, maybe if my team wasn't so bad, I wouldn't have a reason to hate. Anyway, and then the fact that I'm not a big Bill Belichick fan, so the fact that he won it without Bill makes me laugh. I don't know. It's just whatever. But yeah, I am happy that he won it. I seen a documentary not too long ago about him, and I think it was probably like seven years ago, maybe. It was a little bit older of a documentary, but he didn't necessarily have it easy coming up to where he is now. He wasn't always, the GOAT. This guy, kept having to prove himself over and over again. And finally, he just took it and ran with it. You can't be mad at a guy who, when he got the chance, he just took it and ran with it. I mean, we should only be so lucky in our lives. But, congratulations. And to all those Chiefs fans, I can only imagine how much that sucks to watch your team lose, thinking that, you guys are probably a shoo-in to win it this year. But, me being a Bears fan, I can't feel too sad for you, because you're still coming back with a awesome team next year. Okay? We are not. To say the least. One day. But I'm telling you though, people, the Bears are looking at Carson Wentz, and that's going to turn it around. I won't be watching the Bears if they get Carson Wentz, but that's going to turn it around. It's time for a new team for me to root for. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, there was an announcement from a new company, Pixel FX, and we're going to talk about what that announcement is. We're also going to talk about something that kind of slipped past me, and I don't know how I didn't see it right away, but a death in the kind of video game community, which it happened in the beginning of January, and I don't know how I missed it, but we're gonna talk about that person and kind of what it meant to me a little bit. I want to talk about Wanda Vision, and I don't know, it's so weird, but so kind of neat. It's different. It's definitely different, but you know, you have to really watch more than just 2 episodes to really be able to get into it. It's a slow burn at the beginning, for sure. But we're going to talk about that a little bit. But the first thing I want to talk about is a new company called Pixel FX has come out saying that they are going to release something called the N64 Digital. And I seen this, I want to say one of the groups that I follow on Facebook posted the tweet from this company. And I clicked on it and I was like, I don't know what this is. But right away, I kind of figured out what it was. And upon further look, it's an HDMI and RGB mod, which is great. And, you know, we had this conversation, I think it was a couple episodes ago, about the Warrior, that whole debacle that's kind of taken place with that thing, supposedly being a mod kit, an RGB mod kit that really doesn't do what it says it's supposed to do. And if you know anything about the N64 and it playing HDMI as far as even mods go, you know, like the Ultra HDMI is the pinnacle. But not only is that really expensive, but you can't find it. They're never in stock. Never. I've never seen them in stock. So it's good that somebody else is taking the reins. And the guys taking the reins here are 3 guys that are really known in the modding community. And forgive me if I kind of get the names wrong here, because I'm not big knowledgeable on the modding community. But it's Citrus 3000, Kriz 2600, and Woozle 64. Okay, so their background here is pretty much, Citrus and Kriz, and I don't know their real names. I know one's Jeff something or whatever, but anyway, these 2 guys are known for 2 other things that they have done, and that's the PS1 Digital and the DC Digital, which is for the Dreamcast. And of course, you know, PS1, PlayStation, the first one. And basically, all these mods and what the N64 Digital look like is they're HDMI mods that go right to the motherboard. You're taking the digital signal straight from the motherboard and pumping that out. And what that means is this is not going to be a DIY project for you to do. This is going to be something that you have to have somebody do that's knowledgeable. This is definitely not a first time I'm going to try and go solder this thing, because it's going to probably be disastrous. And that was the one thing that really kind of hindered me from, well, not the only thing, but one of the big things that hindered me from really looking hard at the Ultra HDMI was, you know, I don't know how to do this, and who do I know that can do this? Do I want to send this away to somebody that I don't know? And then the price comes into it, and then it's like, okay. But it never really mattered, because like I said, those Ultra HDMI was never in stock. So this is cool. And the third guy in this is Woozle 64, and his name is Stephen Williams. And what he's known for is the Gba Consolizer. And if you don't know what that is, about a year or 2 ago, he came out with the Consolizer. And what it is they take the original version of the Game Boy Advance, the one that had the colored screen, but it wasn't backlit. and they take the insides of it, and put it into this case that pretty much makes it able to play into your HDMI TV. It has HDMI out, and then on the front of it, it has a connection port for a Super Nintendo controller. Because basically, that's what the Game Boy Advance was, for all intents and purposes, a Super Nintendo in your hands. And it's great. The Game Boy Advance. Now, I have not had any experience with the Game Boy Advance Consolizer, but from what I've seen in reviews on YouTube and everything, it's pretty great. I have not ever been quite interested in it because I have the Game Boy add-on player to my GameCube, and that goes out HDMI. But I'm not going to say that I'm not interested in it on some level. And that's kind of with all of these products, the PS1 Digital, the DC Digital, and the Gba Consolizer. I don't have any experience with any of these things. But, and I had to look the information up to really kind of talk about this. And I was aware of these things. I just didn't have a lot of knowledge of it. Just because, PS1, I think a lot of people with the PS1 are content with this, having it go through the PS2 or your PlayStation 3. That's how I played. I play, the original PlayStation on my PS3. And that seems to work all right. But I wouldn't be opposed for getting something like this. But like I said, I'm really hesitant in sending my consoles out to have something this major done to them. And not maybe necessarily knowing the people. I don't really know anybody that knows how to do this personally, but I'm sure if I really dug into this, I could figure out what to do or who to get a hold of. Okay, but anyway, so the N64 Digital, and this is supposedly being launched. I want to say, I think I wrote it down here. April, right? Huh. I know I wrote it down, but now it's not on here. It's April something this year. April of this year. Yeah, evidently my notes have gone missing here. Anyway, so yeah. Wow. I mean, it's funny that we're just hearing about this now. April isn't that far away. We're already, pretty much halfway through February. So I'm really kind of curious to see what kind of levels of stock they're going to have for this, because everything this past year, anything electronics, because of COVID, has just been hit or miss with what you're getting and on a timeline. I really hesitate for anybody that's putting out anything as far as the electronic world to give you a timeline on when they think this is going to be done. You might as well just say, you're going to get it when you're going to get it, folks. I mean, we got to cover our bases here to let you know that we're going to tell you in April, but boy, if it's not April, that's not going to be a surprise. At least to me, it wouldn't be. So you have these things coming out, and, it kind of rolls into another thing that I have been contemplating and really taking an interest in lately. Namely the last week or so. But there are other ways to play your games out there. And by games, I mean the games that are disc-based. And my thing with collecting for disc-based systems is the fact that all of them have optical drives that are prone to failure. Anytime you get a machine that has moving parts in it, it's just a matter of time before that optical drive stops working on it. Now you have, your other systems that are cartridge-based that, they're solid state pretty much systems where you don't have, moving parts to break. Not that they can't break, but with optical drives, this can be a problem. Especially with the consoles that are getting older, the Sega Saturn. Well, the Sega Saturn's a big one because that's the one that I always hear come up in conversations about the drives not being that hardy, always breaking. You know, I had this Sega Saturn that I barely touched. I put it away. It was working fine. I took it out of the closet, hooked up, and now it's not working. That's what I've heard. Now, I've said this before, and other people in the comments below have said, well, I have one, and it's totally fine. Maybe, but I'm just saying what I've heard in general. That's the one that always comes up. But, PlayStation, that's, getting old now. You have the Game Boy, or the GameCube, the Dreamcast, and, of course, like the Sega CD player. Although, the Sega CD, I kind of put into a different realm outside of this. But what I'm getting at here is there are a bunch of different products coming out now. And what they are is disc emulation or emulators. And, like Terra Onion has one that works on either the Dreamcast or the Saturn. And they call that the mode, and it's the multi-optical disc emulator. And there are other ones that come to mind too. Namely, the other big one is the one for the GameCube, and that's called the GC loader. And that's the one I see like really making headlines nowadays. But what these things are, so here's what it is. So basically what you're doing is you are taking the optical drive out. So no more disc. You're not playing anything physical anymore. You're taking that out and attaching another like circuit board to the main motherboard in your system. And on that board is a port for the put in a micro SD card or a regular SD card size. And on that system, you will have, on the cards, you will have your games on it. And that's what you play. So basically, you're loading the ROMs on there to play through original hardware. So instead of an optical drive, you're going through this other board. And, at first, when I first started seeing this stuff come around, I was like, that's not me. I like collecting physical media. And, I'm not going to get into this too bad because I've gone on rants before about how I don't like digital. But here's the difference between this. Like when I say I don't like digital, I don't like these digital stores, right? To where you buy the game and you have it to play, but it's not necessarily yours. You don't have it backed up like the full game on like your hard drive here at home. Okay, so at some point later on, when servers go down, that game's gone. You don't have that anymore. And that's kind of what I worry about. Because I know that when they say, people like to make the point to say, well, when you buy a game, it still doesn't belong to you. You're just buying a license to play that game. Yes, I know. I understand it. But at the same time, okay, when I buy a game, like when you buy any sort of physical media, a CD, a Blu-ray, or a video game on a CD or a cart, you're looking at that as you own that ability to be able to play that whenever you want to, as long as you keep that in pristine order and whatever you need to play it on in pristine order. It's up to you, okay? I don't like it now that it's up to somebody else, another entity, to keep up servers outside of your control. And especially when they are charging full price for these digital downloads in many cases. That's kind of where I fall off on the modern digital gaming, as it be. So anyway, getting back to the point I'm trying to make here is the one thing that's always concerned me going forward collecting for these optical drive systems is, are these things going to last? Are these things going to last? And it's not a huge concern, but it did get me started thinking about a week or two ago. It's like, well, you know what? Maybe I should be looking into one of these, these disc emulators, because it's kind of the best of both worlds there. No, you're not collecting a physical media, but you are playing it through original hardware. You're just, instead of it being delivered by an optical drive, it's being delivered via, this other board with this memory card attached to it. I'm sorry, guys. It's late. If I'm buffering here a little bit to think of this. Anyway, yeah. So the more I see this, the more it's wildly appealing to me. Now, on the flip side of that, well, not the flip side, but other things that I've been kind of messing around with, or messing with the idea of, is EverDrives, because I was like, well, okay, now if I'm willing to do that with the optical drives, maybe I should take a look at EverDrives. And I've kind of been thinking about that. I've kind of been thinking about building myself a Mister, and that's FPGA, because I like the FPGA systems. I like keeping all this stuff future-proof. I'm not a CRT guy. I am not a CRT guy. Okay? You got to start looking towards the future, because those things aren't going to be around. You're already starting to hear people say it's getting harder and harder to find those things, which is a lot sooner than I thought I'd hear. And I know people are going to, fight me tooth and nail to convince me that CRTs are the way to go. I don't give a shit. I really don't. Okay? Stop trying to tell me that that's the best way to go. It's not the best way to go. It's a way to go. I'm looking towards the future. I'm looking at going, okay, look, why don't I just bypass trying to worry about where I'm going to find my next CRT when this one shits out, and figure out, hey, going forward, these new TVs are how it's going to be going forward. How do I play my old school video games on this TV and have it be A, looking good, and C, the controls not being laggy as all hell? And FPGA seems to be the way to go, and playing it on original hardware with HDMI converters, upscalers, and all that jazz. So, anyway, I know I'm kind of ranting here, folks, but my point being is, now with all these FPGA systems coming out, I started thinking about EverDrives, because I'm like, well, what if I just get an EverDrive and then hook it up to my, my retro AVS, or my Super NT, or my Mega SG, and then I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I don't have to worry about, finding these games and playing them. I can just download them. And I know that's not the way to go. I know there's legal things that go along with that. Right or wrong, good or bad, right or wrong, it is what it is. I don't know. I don't mind, though, having all these options nowadays. I say go for it. If this is the way you want to go, I say go for it. There are so many different ways we can do this. And I know I've talked about this in the past, that how great it is right now that so much of this stuff is being developed. Because as much as we want to think our community is a large community as far as like gaming and game collecting, it's, in the big scheme of things, it's really not. And to have people actively developing stuff like what I was just talking about, actively developing stuff like this is fantastic. I sometimes I just pinch myself, because I'm like, this is great. And I do worry. I'm like, when is this? I really hope the floor is not going to fall out of the whole retro gaming community here one day. But, I mean, I guess I can't worry about, what's going to happen in the future that I have no control over. But anyway, this whole little rambling thing I'm on here, that's pretty much it. I'm really glad that, they're coming out with another option for the N64 Digital. And you know what? Maybe I will have this done. Because more than any other thing out there, any other system, it seems like for whatever reason, the N64 on the emulation side is really hard to do. I know that Hyperkin was in development for like the Ultra Hyperkin, or I don't know, something that they were developing, and it was going to be an emulator for your carts, your physical media. But that, and I've mentioned that before, but that doesn't seem to be really happening anytime soon. And all I hear is that N64 is just hard to emulate. And I think it was hard to develop for as far as game developers go when it was relevant and new, when the system was actually just out. But I mean, I could be wrong on that. I mean, but that's just what I've heard. And then and that's a big reason why I don't think we've seen too much N64 emulation out there yet. So anyway, it is a small community that we are part of here as far as gaming goes. A lot of these people that are no longer with us, some of them I have met and know a little bit. Some of them I have never met. But, you watch videos on YouTube, and you watch enough of them, and you feel like you almost know that person sometimes. And I am up to my eyeballs in YouTube on most days. Just like, 3/4 of America right now. And I don't know what it was. One day, a couple years ago, I came across, you get these videos that are suggested to you, but it was the Tetris Championships, which I think happens during the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. I could be wrong in that, but I think that's when it happens, at least the main one. And so I get one of these videos that come up that has one of the competitors on there, one of the matches, and it's a guy named Jonas Newbauer, and I can't remember who he played against, but it doesn't matter. And these guys are on a level that doesn't even come close to where I'm at. And by that I mean light years ahead of me. I mean, crazy reflexes. How these guys play, I have no idea. But all of a sudden I spent, the next 3 hours just watching one after the other, and just going, I can't believe how good these guys are. Just throwing the hammer down. And they start these competitions. They don't start, it going slow. They start on a higher level. And it's going fast right off the bat. And they're just tearing it up. And when they mess up, it's like it would be catastrophic for me. It would be like, this is the game that's over for me. And they're just like, I got to clean this garbage up. And then they're out of it in like 30 seconds. It's crazy how good these guys are. It's really something neat to see, because I don't consider myself a very good game player. But you have those people out there that just, for whatever reason, whether it's been, a lifetime of practicing and playing, or they just have that natural ability where they are more apt to playing video games more so than others. And I was really sad to see that Jonas Newbauer had passed away at the beginning of January. I think it was January 4th. And Jonas was the pinnacle of champions when it came to Tetris. He, I believe, had 7 classic Tetris World Championships under his belt, which, I mean, is crazy. And if you haven't seen this guy play, go on YouTube and type in Jonas Newbauer or Tetris Championships, because just a phenomenal player. And it's really weird that when I found out about this, because I hadn't watched his videos in maybe like a year, and all of a sudden it was suggested to me again, and then I fell right back into it, where I watched all of them over again. And then I was on my computer searching for something else, whatever, and it came up that he had passed away, and it was in the beginning of January, and I'm like, how did I miss this? And I guess the cause of death, it just said a sudden medical emergency. And he was only 39 years old. This guy is younger than I am. And I don't even know the guy, but my heart just sank, because I was like, God, that's just horrible. And I just want to send out a heartfelt the sympathies to his family. I know his wife Heather Ito, I think that's how you say her last name. She in her own right is a phenomenal Tetris player, and I believe she is a Dr. Mario champion. That was, I think, her main cup of tea there. But just horrible that he passed away out of the blue. And I guess that's all there is to really say about that. You never know when the end's going to come. So, people, you got to get out there and do what you want to do right now. If you got that one thing that you've been putting off that you really want to do, I'm telling you, do it now. Because you never know. All right. Well, here's to you, Jonas Newbauer. Yeah, we're sorry that you're gone, buddy. Okay. All right. So moving on to something that's a little bit more happy. Wanda Vision. I am a huge Marvel fan. And I know I've said this a bunch of times, but I love Marvel. They got it right. They knew what they were doing. And it seems like they are continuing that trend. But from not on the big screen, but on, I guess, the small screen, a show made for Disney Plus with episodes and the whole shebang. And, well, I guess I should say, right now, if you have not seen this or you haven't seen all the episodes and you are watching it, this is definitely going to be chock full of spoilers, 100%. So right now would be a good time to stop listening. And I thought I would never tell people to stop listening to this, but, I don't want to ruin it for you, because there are things that happen that make this worth watching. And it's a slow burn. I said that at the beginning. This thing is definitely a slow burn. It is weird, but it's in that kind of brings you in, because you want to see like how this all turns out. So basically, this is taking place, after everybody comes back, after Thanos is destroyed, and now you're seeing kind of how the world has moved on a little bit in this little small area. And it follows a couple different people. I almost want to say like Wanda Maximoff is the main character, her and Vision. And somehow he is alive and she has brought him back. And we're going to talk about kind of how she did that, even though we really aren't quite sure yet on how that is. So it starts off almost like an old school TV show, like in the 50s, like a Leave It to Beaver or, I Love Lucy, in black and white, but it's Vision and it's her, and it's weird. And the whole time you're watching, especially this first episode, before you really get into it, you're going, the whole episode's like that, and then it ends, and you're kind of like, okay, what am I watching here? Because this is like, I guess this is cool and interesting, but odd. And then you watch the second episode, and it doesn't stay in the 50s. Now you're like in the 60s or the 70s. And you're thinking, okay, and stuff's moving fast, and it's like, are they aware of what's happening? Are they not aware of what's happening? Because they don't seem to be, but they kind of are. And it's just odd and interesting at the same time. So you have that side of the story, okay? And you have weird stuff happening in this. And it's weird because, like, everybody in these towns, it's the same people, it's the same town, it's just in a different era. Every time they switch episodes, it's in a different era. But everybody in the town stays the same. Just their clothes, their hairstyle, everything changes. It's kind of cool, actually. It is kind of cool to see, like, how everybody goes through different eras and how their looks change. So you have that side of the story, okay? But then eventually you get far enough into this to where you understand there's another side to this, another part that's going on in conjunction with at the same time that everything inside the TV show is going on. And that's the real world. Everything outside of this town, okay? And that's where these other new characters, along with old characters, come into play. So one of the main characters that shows up now is, and I want to make sure I get her name right, is Monica Rambo. So Monica Rambo is the little girl that was in Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was like her mom's best friend. And if you've seen Captain Marvel, you know what I'm talking about. But now she's all grown up. She's all grown up, and she's part of this organization called SWORD. And from what I can gather, SWORD is pretty much what has taken over for what S.H.I.E.L.D. was. It's a S.H.I.E.L.D.-like organization. We haven't really seen too much of what the organization is all about, but that's what it feels like. It's what took over. And it's kind of what came about after everybody came back, after the 5 years, when everybody was gone, when Thanos got rid of like half of everybody. So she was a part of that. Her mother was like one of the founders. And unfortunately, her mother got cancer and passed away while she was gone, because Monica was one of the half of the people that disappeared. And what is really neat is one of the episodes starts off by showing everybody coming back. And you didn't see that in Endgame, when they got all the stones back. The Avengers got all the stones back, snapped everybody back into existence. So it shows her literally coming back into existence, like everybody, and like the scramble of like, and the chaos of everybody all of a sudden coming back, which was really neat and really kind of eerie too at the same time. How crazy would that be to have lost some loved ones, and then after just grieving and taking it really hard, all of a sudden them coming back? How crazy that would be, and what that would mean to the world as far as reincorporating all these people after the world had been, for the last 5 years, trying to figure out how to move on. And even one of the main the actors here, and I can't think of his name too, but he's the head of SWORD, the director of SWORD, said, you don't know what it was like, in those 5 years, what we had to do to keep the lights on. And that's not really something that was really talked about too much in Endgame, because that wasn't, it wasn't really important. You know, there was a bigger storyline that they were trying to tell. So you're kind of getting that in this show. And I hope they kind of hit on that a little bit more, like what they had to do and what the repercussions were. So anyway, so you have Vision and you have Wanda in this TV show. And you find out that this is all happening in a town that didn't even exist until Wanda made it. Because Monica Rambo is called out to investigate this going on. And it finds out that there's an alternate reality inside this that Wanda is controlling. So now she gets sucked into this, and now Sword comes out, and they set up camp outside of there, trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. And in the process, some of the people they bring in is fantastic. And specifically, I'm talking about the character Darcy from the Thor movies, who was the intern for, what's her name? Man, I'm drawing a blank here. For Natalie Portman's character. Well, whatever. But we know it was the actor Kat Dennings, who is lovely. And now she is not an intern anymore. She's an actual doctor. So she's moved on, which I think is great because she's kind of come into her own as a character, which is fantastic that they brought her in. And she's the one that figures out, hey, you know what? This barrier that's surrounding this town is giving off this signal. And they're able to tap into that signal and watch this TV show going on, which is basically what's going on in this town. I mean, whoever thought of this is either crazy or a genius, because I don't know. I don't know who sits around and figured this out, how to come up with a show like this. But then you find out another thing that's kind of freaky is that all the people in this town, they weren't just made up by her. They're actual people, real people that she is kind of kidnapped and is in their mind forcing them to do all this stuff. And they're aware of this, but they have no control over it. And these people are kind of, well, they're not kind of, they're really traumatized by this, because Vision actually kind of got wise to it a little bit and snapped one of them out of it and into the regular personality, and the person's just freaking out because they're like, oh my God, you got to get me out of this. It's just a living nightmare. And you start seeing this more and more as the show goes on, and it's super eerie. And I don't know if Scarlet Witch is just messed up in the head because of everything that she went through with the Avengers, as far as losing her brother, losing Vision, or if there's something bigger at play here. And I kind of get the feeling that she's not acting on her own accord necessarily. I feel like there's something bigger at play here. But it just keeps drawing you in. And at a certain point, I'd say about the third or fourth episode, you're locked in, and now you got to see how this ends. Because, yeah, it's weird. It doesn't make any sense, but eventually you see that it's going to make sense eventually, and it's going to be cool. So you just strap in and you're in for the ride. So there are a couple things that surprised me. Well, I guess there's one thing that really surprised me. And not this last episode, which is, I'm taping this on Friday night. So not this episode, but the one before it. It ends a certain way. And it ends by her brother showing up right at the end. Now, if you remember, in the Age of Ultron, the Avengers, that movie, he got killed in Sokovia. Ultron shot him down, dead. And that's Quicksilver. That the character's name's Quicksilver. But there was also the same character, a different form of him in the X-Men movies. Namely, I think he first came into the scene in The Days Past. I think that was the movie they called, when the Wolverine went back in the, not back into the future, but back into the past to stop the future from happening with the Sentinels. And he was in that character. And then he was later on in another movie. Well, he was in a couple other movies. No, he was in the last X-Men movie where it was Apocalypse. Yeah, X-Men Apocalypse. Sorry, folks. Let me get a little drink here. Okay. But that character was different. Same character, but yet not. Because in the X-Men, his father ended up being Magneto. Okay? Now, Quicksilver in the Avengers universe, he was from Sokovia. He was the twin brother of Wanda, and they were the Maximoffs, and like I said, they were from Sokovia. So he shows up here at the end. She opens the door, and there he is. And which it was totally awesome. I'm not gonna lie, because I was like, hey, that's him and not him. I'm like, this is totally cool. And I had totally forgotten that Disney had bought Fox, and Fox had the rights to the X-Men, because the X-Men, even though they were Marvel, those rights had been sold off, and Fox had owned those rights for the X-Men. So they had some kind of crossover go here. Now, I don't know what the bigger plans, if there are any, for that fitting in the X-Men into the Avengers universe somehow, but I don't care. For right now, it's totally cool. And this last episode that aired today, February, it'd be the 12th, he's in it. And, it's funny because she's kind of asking him questions because she knows he's her brother, but he's not the same. And he's like, why are you keep testing me? And she's like, well, I'm not, and she's like, where's your accent? And he's like, where's yours? Which I love it, because in Age of Ultron, she had the accent, the Elizabeth Olsen. And then, going on to the other movies, they kind of figured, well, you don't really do the accent all that well. So we're just kind of going to say that, you don't have it anymore and not make a big deal out of it. But that's been one of the things that people have said in the past, is like, hey, in Age of Ultron, she had this accent and now she doesn't. So it was kind of funny that they threw that in there to kind of do a little light humor on that, which I love. So I know I had just been doing a lot of rambling in this, but so now it's getting real. So for some reason, she's gone psycho, but I don't think it's her fault. We're at the point now where Vision has a good idea that shit is not right. Actually, he knows shit's not right. He knows these people are being held captive by her in this town, and he tries to leave. Okay? But he can't. He steps outside, and he pretty much falls apart. And that kind of leads to the question of, like, well, how did he come back? Because we find out that Sword had his body after he had died. And they were holding on to him because he had a will that said that he didn't want to try and be put back together. He didn't want to become somebody else's weapon. She broke in, took him, made this town, put him back together somehow. Now, he doesn't have memories outside of this, so he doesn't know that he was an Avenger. He doesn't have any memory before he was, I guess, revived. He just knows that he's the husband of Wanda. So that's interesting here, because it's Vision, but not Vision. So now we got to see what goes on with this, because at the end of this last episode, pretty much we're finding out that the director of Sword, and forgive me for not remembering his name, but he's up to something. He's kind of up to something as far as what's going on with Vision. There's a bigger plan that he's a part of, I think. Kind of sketchy. And the main characters like Kat Denning, the Darcy character, and Monica Rambo, and there was another main character, an FBI agent, which I fail to remember his name, but they all are on the outs now. They got rid of them. They said, you know what, you're not helping us here. You're a detriment to this operation. Get rid of them. And of course, obviously, it takes them 2 seconds to get away from their guards, which always happens. And now Wanda has increased the area to this town because she gets mad that, well, I think she got mad that, Vision was trying to leave, and she just expands this area to an even bigger area and pretty much takes over the whole Sword encampment. And it's funny because when like the outer perimeter starts expanding and it goes through the camp, it turns everything into a circus. Which is really, it's funny as all hell, because it shows like all of their buildings being turned into circus tents. A lot of the Sword agents turning into clowns and circus performers. Just whoever thought of this is brilliant, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. So we're going to see what happens, because I know that there's going to be more mainstream characters brought into this. I don't know, but you got that feeling. And on the flip side of this too, I have heard that what happens in this show is going to kind of lead in to what's going on in the next Doctor Strange movie, which I can't wait to come out, because that first Doctor Strange was so good. I love that whole universe that he's in, that whole mystical arts universe, and I'm just waiting for that second movie to come out. I can't wait. So we'll see. I have a feeling that if that's true, that Doctor Strange, the second one, is closer to completion than we realize. And I have a feeling why we haven't seen a trailer for that is because it might give away what happens in WandaVision. Now, I could be wrong about all this, but it's cool to kind of contemplate this thing and kind of, talk about what you think's going to happen. It's great. It's good TV. It's good TV, and I'm excited about all this. And, so God knows, I can never say I don't want too much good TV to watch, because anytime I get the excuse to sit down in front of the TV and sit my ass down in front there and just veg out, I'm not going to pass on that. All right, people. Well, I think that's where we're going to end it. I hope I wasn't rambling too much this time. Guys, there's a lot for us to do out there. You got WandaVision, you got all this new video game stuff coming out. I didn't even talk about it. I was going to talk about it maybe next time, but, Limited Run Games has been knocking it out of the ballpark. They got so much stuff that's coming out. They are burning a hole in my pocket like you can't believe. We're going to talk about that next time. I've just been rambling so much, and I don't want to make this episode too long. But that'll be for next time. Limited Run Games, people. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to let you all do what you got to do, and I will see you later. Everybody, good night and goodbye.
When you play